So I just wanted to come on and do a little tutorial kind of showcasing what it is that I do as far as my audio recording goes. So essentially I have an aggregate system that allows me up to 52 channels. Seems like that's overkill, but you'd be amazed how fast they go. I'm not doing any sort of outboard processing like reprocessing or anything like that. I basically just have everything kind of set up in my studio to just take off and run as soon as I'm ready to have an idea. I wanted to limit any kind of friction to creativity in my studio so that if I had different people over, they could just grab stuff and just get going. And I love this about my studio. So as you can see, I'll pull up my aggregate device here and it'll showcase kind of what I've got going on. So I am using an X32 rack mount, which pairs with an SD16 stage box. And I have a Scarlett 18i20 that you can see right there. And I also have a Sapphire Pro that is my expansion to the 18i20. You can see I'm recording at 48K. My clock source I'm using is my Scarlett. And so it's basically how I have this routed is the output for the studio routes over into the XUSB or X32. And this allows me to be able to have zero latency monitoring on my P16s. Because inside of my X32, I can basically pre-route and have all kinds of different options for people when they're running P16s. So I can kind of showcase that and what I'm doing inside of my P16. So as you can see, I'll just go ahead and connect it. It won't connect because you have to turn off your Wi-Fi in order to connect to this. That's one thing about the X32 that I find really obnoxious. I wish there was some sort of a workaround from Behringer that I didn't have to turn off my Wi-Fi just to connect to this thing and be able to edit. But mine are, first world problems. I mean, it's this is such a cool little setup for me. But anyway, essentially this is what I end up doing. If I'm recording like a full band session, or if I have a drummer over that's recording, I set up a room mic in an alternate room away from the drums and away from the mix room where we're at right now. And I just allow that to grab some of the ambient, and I can crush that with some compression and just different things. But I do that on this first channel right there. And then you can see all of my audio routing goes through the next few channels. This runs directly into my X32 rack. And my Art Pre voice channel is next. And then I've got a Persona Studio channel. So that covers all 16 essentially of my first 16 inputs on the back of that X32. Channel number 2 I'm not really using right now, partly because when I use my PA, channels 1 and 2 are utilized for the volume of your PA, the way that I have it routed anyway. So it's kind of obnoxious, like having to hurry and change all of the different settings and do all kinds of crazy stuff. I just have simplified this as much as possible. And then it picks up on my SD16's audio snake, and you can see I have another 16 channels essentially for inputs. And then I'm also utilizing some of my auxiliaries. So the X32 actually has 8 auxiliaries that accommodate. So you can see here's where my DAW comes in as aux 1 and 2. And then on the P16s, you can set up those P16s on sends. You can choose, whatever kind of routing they are. So off of my keyboard, I have a singular output that is a dedicated out. It doesn't mix with any of the main signals. That's one wire, and it comes directly out and goes into one of my auxes into the back of this this X32 rack. And then I can basically, per channel, you see I've got this selected here, per channel, I can select what is mixing in that channel's grouping. So I can do a lot of customization here, and I'm only utilizing just some basic functions. So currently, right here, you can see this main. This ends up being my big room mic, BR. So I'm sending that to the drum bus so that when the drummer is playing, they have a mix level of that room, so they get some of the space and dimension of the drum kit. And I do the same thing with each one of these inputs here, and you can see I've mixed them. They pan left and right. You're able to do tons of different stuff inside of this thing. That incorporates basically my drum bus. Then the next channel I go to, this one's routed to my guitar for some reason. I must have been doing a session where I needed to play guitar through it, probably an acoustic guitar or something like that. I was using the Art Pre for my preamp on a guitar and was doing something interesting with it. My vocals goes to a vocal bus. You kind of get the idea here. So this handles all of the stuff for when I'm like jamming live, any of that kind of stuff, which is really cool. And when I'm utilizing these chains inside of here in my aggregate device, like I was showing you a second ago, I'm able to real-time monitor through this with zero latency. And then also, because I have the DAW coming back into aux 1 and 2, there's no latency. So I hear real time exactly what's going on as the person's playing it. And then I also have the playback of any other instruments, and I have mix levels, and I can change how loud that is in the person's ear if they need it softer or louder. And their P16 is maybe maxed out, or maybe there's an issue with their mix and I just want to do it like super quickly. Essentially, that's how it's all done. This thing comes with like a whole bunch of effects. I really don't use the effects a whole lot because I have a little floor processing module from TC Helicon. There are about 1,000,001 things that you can do with this this setup here. And I'm gonna go ahead and I am going to, how do you set up? I'm going to go ahead and connect to this so that it will monitor in real time. Maybe. Oh, maybe I can't do it while I'm screen recording. I don't know. Learn stuff all the time here. So I might close out on it and then open it back up and see if it'll let me reconnect. Oh, there we go. Now it'll let me reconnect. So jumping back in here, you can see some of my levels are pretty live. So I'm running my my Shure mic that I'm talking into right now through a Cloud Lifter style preamp boost, and then directly into my 18i20. And then you can see my audio levels. I have some room mics above me, and there's just a few things. You can see them kind of bouncing around in real time. Anyhow, you can go over to routing, and you can see my SD16 is connected on AES50A. I'm going to record only, so when you're in record only, you're able to hear like playback of, or you're hearing the live performance of what you're doing. When you go to playback, it shuts off the ability for the P16, at least in any usable function that I can figure out, to be able to use that P16 as a live monitoring rig. So this is part of the reason why I ended up doing an aggregate device. I set my stuff up to be a 32 channel audio interface. the Ultranet, you can see I've got, some of the stuff routed. So on the P16 itself, these are the channels 1 through 16. And then these are the buses that I was showing you before. When you go into your sends, you can set these up for whichever one it is. And, if you change the name of it, it would automatically change here. And then you can do some customization and a few other little things inside of there. So that's essentially how I've got my entire setup run. And I got to tell you, when I figured out how to do this, it was such a relief, because dealing with delay when you're recording is kind of a nightmare. And I wanted to be able to utilize my X32 as well as my Focusrite stuff. I really like the versatility of both. They sound different. They're a little bit different. It's not terribly different, but a little bit. And I like utilizing one for certain things, one for other things. The X32 is great for live sound and, kind of getting tons and tons of channels all figured out and routed and having playback and all of these kinds of things. But the Focusrite stuff is a little bit easier to deal with when you're just tracking channel by channel and you're doing like vocals, stuff like that from within the studio. And I use Logic Pro. I just recently upgraded to 11, and I don't know if it's my computer or if it's Logic Pro itself, but it's a little buggy. I've had it crash on me a whole bunch. I've had to do some crazy stuff with the cache size that I've never had to do with Mac. So I kind of think that there's probably a bug. Either that or it's just like super optimized for the M series chips that Mac came out with or the Apple came out with. And they've basically abandoned my old, Intel processor to the fire, so to speak. And it just can't keep up with the heavy processing that's available on the new chips. That's kind of how tech goes. At some point I'll probably end up having to upgrade if I want to keep up with the Logic stuff. But essentially it works for me now, and I really love how it works. For the most part, it's an amazing, platform. So I'll open up Logic, kind of go in here and showcase a little bit about how I am running things. So you can see I have some project templates that I run. If I'm tracking, like if I'm creating new songs, I have a template for that. If I am jamming with a bunch of people, then this is the template for that. So we'll go ahead and go into there. I like to sample at 48 kilohertz. And it seems like that is a good setup for me. So you can come in here. I don't have my Alesis turned on right now, so it's wondering where they are. But essentially, this is how I set up my projects. So you can see I have a drum bus, and it's got all of my different drums in here. I have control room mics that are sitting in the room where I'm sitting right now with my Macs. And my keyboard is live, my bass is live. I've got a Helix, so I've got the DI from my Helix, and I've got a spider valve from line 6. It's a great little amp. I think a lot of people hate on it, but I love it. I think it's great for what it does. It's super versatile, but for me, I use very basic functions on it. I actually use my Helix to generate most of the sounds because I've got some Dumble style things that I run through it, and so I'm turning off a lot of the front end processing or preamp stuff on this spider valve, and then I take a direct out on the spider valve back into the studio, and you can see I'm routing that into input 19. My Helix is 18. Anyway, you get the idea. If you're familiar with recording studios at all, then you kind of get all of this stuff. But yeah, this is basically my setup. I run things into buses. I have very little processing that I run on channels and things like that. I really love Logic. There is a ton of stuff in here. The console EQ and the tube EQ that they have, that's like the Pultec emulator in the 1073 style console mic pre's and EQs, I find are just absolutely awesome. I do some pretty heavy processing on my master bus, but essentially this allows me to get kind of like a mix ready setup, like almost out of the box. A lot of things don't really change in my studio, like the input volumes are usually always the same. It's kind of a set it and forget it kind of a situation. And so once I've spent a considerable amount of time going through and trying to dial in sounds, I get a really usable sound, and it mixes down really nice. And you can see basically how I'm handling it. I don't use all of this stuff. They're just options for different kinds of songs and things like that. But I tend to set up, chains up here. So if I'm creating new things, it's real easy for me to get the channel back to where I need it. Utilizing this software is just awesome. So when I record, I generally jump into low latency mode. That allows my CPU to not work quite as hard. Like I was saying, the new Logic is a little bit more heavy, and so I have to get my cache size up, which causes the CPU to have to really work hard. So yeah, that's basically my setup. I'll go through and I'll do some demos of different recordings and stuff like that here in the future. But this is like the general gist of how everything operates in here. So anyway, thanks for joining. I'm Jared. I think I forgot to mention that in my first video. So welcome to the channel. Hope you stay. Hope you like it. If you do, consider subscribing. Consider leaving a like. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you in the next video.